I grew up in communist Poland and clearly remember the screwed up economic system there. One day in particular, I was walking with my grandmother in Warsaw. This was in the early 80s, I was a little kid, when we passed an unfinished apartment building. Knowing that many families were on waiting lists for apartments and married couples were living with their parents until places became available, I asked Grandma when the building would be finished. "Beats me," she said. "That building has been standing there untouched for 7 years. It's not likely to ever be finished." Polish communism resulted in mismanagement, incompetence, and poverty that arose from a top-down economic system where those in charge were appointed not based on merit or ability to produce value, but rather on their adherence to the doctrines of the Glorious Revolution and a talent for spouting fashionable buzzwords which those in power wish to promote. Thank goodness that's not happening here in Canada. Thankfully, communism in Poland fell in 1989, and I'm fully aware that Western free markets aren't truly free and that unfettered capitalism can also result in plenty of injustice. But I am still a fan of the modern version for the comforts, progress, scientific discoveries, and economic opportunities it has provided. We have made great strides in technology, medicine, and standard of living, and capitalism contributed to that. However, I'm far less enthusiastic about vulture capitalism. Now, you may have seen Fortnine's latest video in which Ryan, the host, heavily implies that in 2018, Harley Davidson basically killed San Francisco electric motorcycle startup Alta Motors in a bid to acquire it. If you haven't, I'll leave a link in the description. But in this video, I'll give you a history of the entire affair, summarize what we know, examine the insider information that was leaked to the Fortnine channel, and ponder the ethics of a giant American motorcycle company ruining an American startup in an underhanded acquisition bid. We'll examine whether the allegations are true, and if so, how they reflect on the motor company. So settle in, and if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to stage a hostile takeover of the like and subscribe buttons to support the channel. Alta Motors was an off-road electric motorcycle company which existed under various guises from 2007 to 2018. The company offered several versions of their Redshift dirt bike and motocross, enduro, and supermoto guises. The bikes were extremely competitive, and YouTube is full of videos depicting racers turning faster MX laps on Redshifts than their best laps on their 450 4-strokes. The reasons for this are several, but include smoother power delivery and traction control, and the lack of a clutch, which enabled the rear brake to be located on the handlebar, thus freeing the rider to focus on shifting weight on the pegs without having to cover the brake pedal. Regardless, Alta gained a reputation as the first electric motorcycle that could outcompete internal combustion rivals on a level playing field and even won races at the highest levels. In fact, Josh Hill, riding a Redshift, actually beat Ricky Carmichael, who was riding a Suzuki RMZ 450, in the final of a one-on-one playoff. All this, as well as the complete lack of maintenance, oil changes, valve adjustments, rebuilds, led to the sale of quite a few bikes. The prices were slowly coming down to the level of the Japanese and European 450s, and not having to maintain and fuel the bikes made up for the difference in price over the long haul. So what led to the company going out of business? Well, here's where we enter the fog of private negotiations and non-disclosure agreements. The official line is that in March of 2018, Alta Motors entered a partnership with Harley Davidson for the purpose of developing new electric Harleys, ones that would hopefully be less expensive than the $30,000 USD live wire. Harley walked away from the partnership 6 months later, and Alta was left holding their At this point, they frantically tried to sell to Canadian company Bombardier Recreational Products, BRP, but the deal fell through and Alta went under. Later, BRP bought some of Alta's technology from the creditors. And so we get to Fortnine, a well-regarded YouTube channel with a wide reach and a pretty consistent refusal to kiss corporate butt. Just the kind of channel to whom a former employee who was bound by a non-disclosure agreement would choose to send an anonymous USB stick with the information that they were not allowed to share. And since Ryan from Fortnine is well-regarded, it is pretty clear that he honestly reported the contents of this leak. Here's the story. Harley Davidson made an offer to purchase Alta at a very high price and signed an exclusive negotiation agreement with the electric motorcycle maker. After Alta signed, Harley stalled the negotiations, knowing that Alta's cash flow problems would eventually make the owners desperate to sell. At that point, Harley came in with a lowball offer which Alta rejected. Alta then tried to court BRP, but no deal could be reached. Compounding the problem was the fact that Harley owns confidentiality rights over Alta's next generation technology, so why would BRP pay premium dollar if all they could build was the last gen bike? After the smoke cleared, BRP swooped in and bought up some of that old tech anyways for much less than the cost of acquiring the company. It seems that Alta went under because they found themselves in an impossible position between two industry giants with no money and no backing. So who's to blame? Alta for over-leveraging themselves as a young startup? That's what young startups do. The free market is great, but it's also a dog-eat-dog world where less than 10% of new companies survive until reaching profitability. Most startups grow a product and aim to sell to a big company for a huge profit. It's the American dream. Alta had a great product, but it was also a product that used new technology and was hard to scale and produce at a competitive price while at the same time expanding manufacturing in the United States with an American workforce. BRP is not really to blame either. Company execs have a fiduciary responsibility to their investors to get value for their money, and buying what is essentially a tech startup while not having access to its latest tech is not financially sound. Too bad. A Canadian-owned electric dirt bike that was competitive with the best in the world would have been cool. Maybe Bombardier will bring back the Redshift or something like it. That's a bike I would actually be interested in buying. And that brings us to Harley, this channel's favorite whipping boy. Now, I ride one, but I also call out crap I don't like. I have no reason to believe that someone would fabricate this information and send it to Fortnite. First, what could possibly be the motivation for that? And second, I assume that the Fortnite channel did some verifying before running the story. So on a balance of probabilities, I'm inclined to believe it. And if you believe it, it certainly does not cast Harley Davidson in a good light. Now to be clear, I'm talking about the former management team led by CEO Matt Levatich. And you could argue the same fiduciary responsibility that BRP had, but there's a big difference between what BRP did and what Harley Davidson did in this case. BRP refused to purchase a company mostly because they could never get access to that company's latest tech. Harley Davidson, who incidentally never misses a chance to wrap themselves in the stars and stripes, found an American-owned and American-built motorcycle company which did not compete in their niche, one that built dirt bikes, a style of motorcycle that has recently proven to be the most popular two-wheeled seller in both North America and the rest of the world, and in an attempt to get it at a discount, drove it out of business. The management, the workers in the factory, all Americans by the way, all shafted by a giant orange piston rod. And I don't mind telling you that stinks. Imagine an electric Harley Davidson dirt bike beating KTM, Husqvarna, Beta, and the Japanese manufacturers in motocross and enduro races. Imagine a dirt bike with none of the pricey maintenance schedule of the typical high-performance internal combustion machines. How cool would that have been? How much goodwill would Harley Davidson have garnered from the American public? How many kids would have started dirt biking on an electric HD, imprinting that logo on their brain for life? Instead, Harley Corporate pursued a policy which sunk a promising company and destroyed at least 100 American jobs. And for what? To save a few bucks on an acquisition? And they had to sign Alta's former employees to non-disclosure agreements in order to hide their culpability. And what if now, as seems likely, they come out with some cool bikes based on technology from Alta? Now that this info is out, are you gonna run out and buy it? That'd be like dancing in Alta's grave. Yeah, it stinks, but then vultures are drawn to dead carcasses, aren't they? I fear that this one will haunt Harley's new smaller electric models as they're about to be released. No doubt, whoever sent the USB to Fortnite was counting on damaging HD just as the new models, probably based on Alta technology, are about to hit the market. And I'd say that this will definitely tarnish the motor company, though anyone who believes that the Harley Davidson front office actually cares about American industry or labor should ease up on whatever they're smoking. And despite all of this, and knowing that vultures are always circling somewhere, I'm still a fan of the free market. It allows me to give my money to companies who are not quite as ruthless. So what are your thoughts on this whole affair? Has this story soured you on a certain brand? Would you buy an electric Harley dirt bike even if it was able to bury the competition? Would you buy a Bombardier Redshift? I actually might. That was a sweet machine. Hopefully we see something like that. Please share your thoughts in the comments and ride safe. If you're interested in any of the gear that Brooke and I wear or use, or the camera equipment we use to film this channel, the links are below. Everything listed there was bought with our own money and we are not sponsored by any company. However, the links below are affiliate links and the channel is paid a small amount for referring you to shop at no additional cost to you. We do not recommend any products that we are not satisfied with ourselves, but we do strongly urge you to do your research and select the correct size for items like helmets and clothing. As always, thanks for watching, your support is greatly appreciated. Please hit that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. And whatever you ride, enjoy it. Wave at other bikers no matter what they're riding. We're all part of a brotherhood and sisterhood. Keep the rubber side down, shiny side up, and may the spokes be with you.